G'day guys, iRacing just dropped an update as well as some awesome new content. We got a couple of freedom-loving GT3 cars as well as a couple of European tracks you might not have heard of, one of them even being free. Let's talk about the good, the bad, and what you should buy. I'm going to go over the circuits first since there isn't that much to cover, starting off with the free track, meaning that it is included in the iRacing content and you have it in your game right now if you've updated. Circuit de Navarra in Spain. The first thing I noticed on this track exiting the pits is that the pit exit is going to cause so many arguments in iRacing VC. It feeds you directly onto the apex of turn 1, which if this track ends up getting used in IMSA or a multi-class series especially, or even GT3 with pit stops, it could cause some massive issues. The track itself is a modern European motorcycle-esque tilkedrome, is the best way I could describe it. It's very similar to Jerez and Aragon, which recently released in iRacing, or kind of like a flatter, smaller Portimao, maybe. The circuit starts off with a very Portimao-esque first corner complex that features a fast right-hander, followed by a medium-speed right-hander, followed by a oh crap, I should have broke 50 meters ago, tight hairpin. This track follows this formula for pretty much the whole lap. It has a lot of hairpins with a lot of weird curbing that kind of, because of the iRacing 3D curbing model, it's absolutely vibrating your wheel, and it also is slippery at points but very grippy at points. I kind of found this one of the hardest parts of the track to get a handle on. Basically, the whole track follows the formula of fast sweeping corner into heavy braking zone for a hairpin, and outside of that, it's just a bunch of hairpins. It very much does feel like a bike circuit, not that that's necessarily a bad thing. In fact, in higher downforce cars that can negotiate the hairpins a little bit faster, I did find the track quite fun, but in medium to low downforce cars, I would describe the track as very mid. I did ask my Twitch chat of about 200 people earlier today to rate the track. It averaged out to about a 5, and honestly, I'd say that's fair. However, it costs absolutely nothing, so instead of me rambling about it, just go give it a try. It's a fun track. I'm glad it's included. It's always welcome to have more free content in iRacing. Next up, we have a track that isn't free. It's going to cost you $14.99 of your American dollary dues. Sachsenring, which is in Germany. This again is a primarily motorcycle circuit. It plays host to the MotoGP in Germany, as well as a lot of other prominent bike series, although DTM do also go there on the car side of things. This track is really cool. It's very not like a tilkedrome in that it has a lot of undulation and flow and interesting corners. Ironically though, this one actually was designed by Herman Tilke. The question is though, should you buy it? And to that I say, maybe, but also no, depending on what you want out of a track, and I'll explain what I mean by that now. The track itself is pretty cool in my opinion. I really like it. You kind of split it into two sections. The first section of the track is this very highly technical section with a lot of very slow speed left and right corners with interesting camber and curbs to navigate throughout. This section's really difficult, and in the gameplay I'm showing you, you'll see I still suck at it, but it's very interesting. I found the whole time kind of waiting to get on the throttle. You have to have a lot of patience in regards to that. After you're out of this section, it goes into this fast flowing section, 3 very fast left-hand corners, followed by a final left-hander to get you to the start finish line. I really like this section. It's very fast and flowing and a bit of a bravery test to like how fast you can get the car to go before you're in the sand trap and losing time. So based off all that, should you buy the track? Well, if it looks like a track you like, maybe, yeah, maybe you should. I really like it. However, a very important part of buying tracks in iRacing is whether or not people are going to use them in officials and whether or not you're going to be able to use them. And unfortunately, the signs for this track aren't looking great. The official Week 13 series is completely dead on day 1, and when I polled my Twitch chat of about 250 people earlier to ask if anyone had bought the track, a single person said yes, everyone else said no, and for context, about 50 people said they'd bought either the Ford or the Corvette. So from what I can tell, no one's really buying this track, which means in official racing, it might be very dead, kind of like Mazzano was last season. So if you're planning to use the track in official racing, maybe pass on it. Now, obviously, this is a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy because if no one buys the track because no one else is using the track, then no one will ever buy the track. But if you're looking to save money and you want to race this in officials, maybe skip the track for now and see how it goes for participation later in the season. As a quick honorable mention, you might have noticed I was driving the Porsche Cup car just then at Sachsenring, and this car has been completely reworked. It has a new tire model, and a lot of the understeery sluggishness issues that people were talking about are gone now. The car is a lot more responsive, although it is easier to lock up. So I'll say if you haven't liked the Porsche Cup in the past due to understeer or whatever, definitely give it another go. It's a lot better now, in my opinion. Also, I don't know if I've ever mentioned this, but that was the same Porsche Cup that I actually got a P4 in the PESC All-Stars Championship and won a race in. I don't know if I've ever mentioned that. Okay, moving on. Now it's time to move on to those freedom-loving, Dale Earnhardt worshipping, incorrect, silly measurement system using GT3 cars. These cars are really fun, they're really awesome, and people have wanted them in the game for ages. So should you buy one of them, both of them, or none of them? Let's go into that now. I'm going to start by giving you an overview of each car, how it looks, how it sounds, and how it drives, and then we'll go into some lap times and benchmarking that I did to kind of give you guys an idea of the speed that I was able to extract out of the cars. Let's get started with the Corvette. Aesthetically, this is what the car looks like. Ironically, if 10 years ago you asked me whether this car was a Ferrari or a Corvette, I probably would have said a Ferrari. I mean, being a mid-engine car, it doesn't look like what you traditionally associate a Corvette with, but of course that is what the new Corvette road car is like as well. Aesthetics aside though, this car is mid-engine, meaning it does drive a lot like the Lamborghini, the Audi, and the Ferrari, which already exist in the game and are mid-engine GT3 cars. In terms of driving feel, I would say it feels a lot like the Ferrari in the mid-high-speed corners, and even in mid-corner and corner exits. It does feel a lot like the Audi or the Lambo coming off the brake and trail braking into corners. It is very pointy, and sometimes the rear does want to overtake the front if you've trail braked too aggressively. This car doesn't love curbs for sure. I would say it takes curbs not as well as the Ferrari, maybe as well as the Audi. In general though, the car is quite safe. Going through high-speed corners like 130R, even when using a custom-made setup, I was using the Hymo free baseline that they offered, I did find that the car had no problem getting through those high-speed corners without wanting to spin out like the Audi or Lambo maybe would if you put too much steering lock on. Even when I intentionally tried to put too much steering lock on or lift off the throttle to transfer the weight, the car wasn't going around, which was really nice. And in terms of sound, this is what the car sounds like from inside the car. And this is what the car sounds like from outside the car. In my opinion, that does sound like a Dyson vacuum on low setting from in the car. I don't love the sound, and I think that's kind of a general consensus. From outside of the car though, I do think it sounds quite good. Overall, this car is a really fun car to drive. I think if you like the Ferrari, you will like this car. It's kind of a little bit pointier, maybe a tiny bit harder to drive than the Ferrari, but overall it is a rewarding driving experience. The main drawback of this car for sure is its pace, and we'll talk about that later in the video when I go over the lap times I was able to get. Pace concerns aside, the driving experience was really fun, although as I said, I wasn't able to go that fast, but we'll talk about that later. Now let's talk about the Mustang. First of all, this thing is gorgeous. If you have a Corvette, the Mustang is who she told you not to worry about. Now that's just my opinion, but I do think this car is gorgeous. As soon as you get in this car, however, one thing does become apparent, and that is that visibility out of this car is not great. It's kind of like you're looking out of a mailbox. Now you guys need to keep in mind as well, I used a very zoomed in FOV because my monitors and where they're placed. A lot of people are going to be using a wider FOV, so the gap you're going to be looking through is going to be even narrower. This obviously isn't that much of a problem, but it is something to keep in mind. In terms of driving experience, this car is a front engine car and it drives a lot like the Merc and BMW. Initially I drove this car on the fixed set and I was noticing it had a lot of of the Merc's driving characteristics in that the fronts really wanted to slide into corners and I had to work to control that. The car absolutely monsters curbs, eats them for breakfast. On Road Atlanta at the top of a hill, I was able to absolutely clobber the curb, no issues whatsoever. I noticed that the car had a lot of that body roll characteristic of the Merc, where you really need to focus on getting the weight into the corner to get the car to turn. It was, however, incredibly stable, I guess as you would expect out of a front engine car. That's normally why front engine cars are recommended to new sim racers so often. Once I put on a Hymo set though, I did notice that the car drove a lot more like the Beamer, where the rear of the car started sliding as well into corners. It wanted to push a little bit, it wanted to rotate more, and it did drive a lot like the Beamer. I was able to go a bit faster on this setup, but it definitely did take a lot of the safety out of the car. I do think, however, the Mustang is a car that drives as you would expect for a front engine car, and there's definitely not too many surprises. In terms of sound from in the car sounds like this. And from out of the car, it sounds like this. Unlike the Corvette, I feel that from in the car, this car sounds great, but from out of the car, maybe not that good. But again, that is a total personal opinion, just like aesthetics. Overall though, the Ford GT3 is a really fun car to drive. It's a very stable front engine car that doesn't offer too many surprises, but it is gorgeous, it sounds good, and of course there is a bit of novelty to driving a Mustang. Unlike the Corvette, however, I was able to extract quite a bit of pace out of this car, which I guess we should probably talk about now. In terms of pace, I did testing at 3 tracks: Road Atlanta, Bathurst, and Long Beach. These aren't the only 3 tracks I drove the car at, but they are the only ones that I did multiple laps testing, trying to get up to speed and trying to get some fair benchmark lap times. By doing this, I learned some really interesting things about these new cars. Firstly, I tested all the cars on the iRacing fixed set, which is what they'll be using in the fixed GT3 series. What I found was the Corvette was consistently slower than the Mustang on all 3 tracks that we tested at. However, I do think most of this is down to setup and not the car, because when I tried the Corvette on the Hymo setup, it did perform significantly better. At times, especially on Road Atlanta, the Corvette was 0.5 seconds slower than the Mustang. I found in general the Mustang to be a lot faster of a car than the Corvette, including when using it on an actual setup and not an iRacing fixed setup. However, something interesting is that no matter what track I did the testing at, if I compared it to a car that was traditionally OP in the fixed series at that track, for instance the Lamborghini at Road Atlanta or the Ferrari at Bathurst, or I did the Lamborghini at Long Beach as well, the traditional car, the existing car, was way quicker due to the fixed set. Now iRacing might update the fixed set in the next week or so, which obviously means that it would be more competitive, but at the moment I genuinely don't think either of these cars are going to be massively OP at all, and in the fixed series I don't even think they're going to be an option right now, especially the Corvette. That being said, there's still the rest of the week for iRacing to update the cars and update the BOP, so definitely keep an eye on that. And honestly, in terms of should you buy these cars, really it's personal preference. I think ultimately you should buy the car that you like, the brands that you like, race them, learn them, and get to know them. Personally, if I was spending my own money, I'd be buying the Ford and not the Corvette. This is just because the Ford is a really cool car for me. I really like Mustangs and I've liked Ford my whole life. And that's exactly my point. It's completely personal preference. I've tried to give you all the facts in this video and then you can make your own decision. Thanks for watching that one, guys. I did really enjoy going over this new content. I stream 6 days a week on Twitch. If you have any questions, please do ask them in my chat. I'm happy to respond. Please do leave a comment, a like. See you next week. Bye!